We are going to be talking about prescriptions, all the anti-pills, the anti-anxiety, anti-depressants, talking about sleeping pills, and then getting into all of the other sleep aids. We've got alcohol, over-the-counter meds, we've got essential oils, and all kinds of other things that you guys tend to use because you're trying everything. You're trying absolutely everything because you want a solution and you want it to work. You want to have good sleeps. You want to be happy. You want your motivation and drive back. You want energy, all of these things. And you're doing everything that your doctor tells you, everything that you're trying because you want a solution. Okay. So I don't want you to think at all that what you are doing is wrong. And I also want to preface this that what I am saying is not to go off of any of these prescriptions. That definitely needs to be dealt with your doctor. What I will say is that with the help of doctors, most people in all but one actually have been able to get off of all of their anti-anxieties, antidepressants, and all of their sleeping pills that we've been able to work with. So I'm going to, if you guys have any questions, post them as I am talking. I'm going to be going through each of these one by one and breaking down what's happening in your body because each of them actually is a different thing that's going on. So we're going to start with sleep because that's what we've been talking about today. So with sleep, we have talked about tired and wired as being the fact that when you're tired and wired, that is having too much cortisol, waking hormone in your frontal lobe, and your melatonin is not increasing, which is your sleep hormone, so that you can fall asleep. So when you are taking a sleeping pill, what it does is it kind of bypasses that. It may get the cortisol to release, and it does start, and it gets you to bypass that, but it does not get your natural melatonin to kick in. And so what happens with that is when your natural melatonin kicks in, as we've talked about earlier this week, your stress management system manages 50 different hormones: sleeping, waking, energy, mood, memory, cognitive thinking, being in that hypervigilant, tunnel vision state to a big picture thinking, your gut digestion, blood pressure, cholesterol, insulin, glucose, all of these different things. So it is in charge of all of these different systems, your inflammation, your healing systems. So if you don't get your natural melatonin kicking in, then all of these other hormones can't do what they're supposed to do, which is why quite often when you take this sleeping pill, you may be able to fall asleep because it's bypassing those systems and it gets you to fall asleep. But you either wake mid-sleep, because as we talked about earlier this week in Monday's video, waking mid-sleep is a different cause than the tired and wired. So the sleeping pill is only bypassing that first issue. And if you are still sleeping with the sleeping pills, then what happens is you're waking up feeling almost hungover, disoriented, so groggy that it takes you a long time to really start kicking in. So that is why sleeping pills may get you to sleep, but not get you to get a quality sleep. And then that digs us into the next one would be the anti-pills, the anti-anxiety, antidepressants. So when we're digging into those, there's two aspects that we need to look at when we look at the anti-pills. We're looking at first your hormones of what we just talked about, those 50 different hormones. They, in there, you have your moods, you have energy, your anxiety capabilities, depression, all of those are managed by those 50 different hormones that your stress system manages. So as if those are totally out of whack, then so are all of those hormones. The other thing that we need to dig into is your gut. So your gut, as we talked about earlier this week as well, you have two branches of your nervous system that we talk about with stress, one that turns on your stress systems and one that turns them off in your resting state. And when you are in that stress state for long periods of time, it actually slows down your digestion, your gut movement. And the thing is that 80 to 90% of your serotonin production. So serotonin, antidepressants are serotonin upregulators. So what they do is they push synthetic, so fake, serotonin through your body. And they're trying to mimic what your natural serotonin does. The thing is that your gut, though, is responsible for 80 to 90% of your serotonin production. So if you're having diarrhea, constipation, if you have been on protein pump inhibitors for a long time, antacids, if you have acid reflux, GERD, any of these things for long periods of time, the odds are that your body is not producing the amount of serotonin that it needs in order to keep you happy, calm, low anxiety, and feeling good and being able to relax. So you have the nervous system overfiring, you have the gut, and then you have the hormones that are out of whack as well. So when you're taking anti-anxiety pills or anti-anxiety and antidepressants, when you're taking those, the thing is what they're doing is they're just upregulating synthetic hormones in you. They're giving you the fake hormone. So they're not teaching your body how to start producing its own and what it's supposed to be producing. So it's never fixing the root of the problem, which is why you need to be on them for long periods of time. And with them as well, they tend to stress certain parts of your body. And as you're learning with stress, you get more brain fog, you get more moodiness, you get kind of disconnected. It starts to take away that motivation and drive that you had. So even though you're not having the depressive symptoms, or it curbs your anxiety a bit, or for some of you, it may curb it quite a bit, it's not fixing the root of the problem. Okay, so that is sleeping pills. And then we've gotten into the anti-anxiety and the antidepressants. Let's dig into alcohol. So alcohol, what it does in your system, a lot of people I hear use it to help them fall asleep. So alcohol does react a little bit with the frontal lobe of your brain, and it does kind of calm down. So as you know now, when you can't fall asleep, and you have that tired and wired brain, it's because you have that extra cortisol in the frontal lobe of your brain. And when you have alcohol, it kind of dulls that a little bit. So you're not having all of those thoughts, and you are maybe able to fall asleep a little bit. The thing with alcohol is it actually stresses out your hormones. So those 50 hormones, again, see how there's so much of a relation between all of these things? It starts to really mess those up, and it taxes them. The other thing that we've learned a lot with alcohol is where it also stimulates your dopamine. So we talk a lot about addictions and stuff when there's PTSD, when there is stress on your system. So I talk about it as far as stress on your system. When you're in burnout, there is a higher prevalency to addictions to alcohol and drugs. And with that, that's this other hormone. Or you have your dopamine. Dopamine used to be known as the feel good, the kind of like giving treats to a dog, and they start relating, it gives them a dopamine hit every time. Well, that is what we used to think that dopamine was, but it's actually a learning habit hormone. It teaches you how to actually learn habits, and it does give you those happy signals. So as you're doing the alcohol and you have the alcohol before bed, and it does curb a little bit of these hormones in your brain a little bit, then it actually sends your dopamine a hit, and your dopamine likes it, and then it wants more. So you get to the point with alcohol where you get to learn the habit that the alcohol is something that you do to fall asleep, even though it's not getting you a good sleep. Alcohol also affects your testosterone, your sexual hormones. It can affect your reproductive hormone. It also affects a lot of other different stress hormones in your system, and it taxes you even more. It also will cause that cortisol that we talked about earlier this week to actually lower even more, which means when you're waking with less cortisol, which cortisol is supposed to be your highest when you're waking. And it gets you to that point where that cortisol is so low that you have no motivation, drive, and you're thoroughly exhausted, feeling hungover in the morning, even when you're not drinking alcohol. Over-the-counter meds, they do the same thing, similar to the sleeping pills that I talked about, where they bypass that first section. They kind of get your cortisol to be lowering, but they don't really get your melatonin to kick in enough. So that is that one. And the last thing that I wanted to go over is essential oils. So a lot of people really love essential oils, and I'm absolutely not against them. I actually have a module in the program for essential oils. But the thing to understand about essential oils is that they are something that you use more in triage and first aid. They're not actually fixing the root of the problem. So I have different blends. I do have sleep blends. If I am struggling to sleep, what these blends do is they do help to increase my melatonin, and they decrease the cortisol in my body. So I do have one that'll do that, but it only does it at that point in time. It's not teaching my body, it's not fixing a problem. So, and if your stress system is so taxed that your hormones aren't able to listen. So I actually just was on a call this afternoon with a gentleman in the program that is really struggling to start implementing the steps of the program. And he keeps skipping the very first phase. And that very first phase is where we give a little bit of a boost to your hormones so that they can give you a bit of resiliency and strength in your stress system. So you have a little motivation and drive, you have a little bit of energy, you're not as short fused, and your hormones can actually start to listen. We need to do that first, because if you're at a stage where you're in such burnout that your hormones can't listen, then we can't teach them. Then the next steps that we teach them, your hormones can't listen. So if you are doing essential oils and you're doing lavender, is supposed to actually start eliciting your own natural melatonin. And if you are taking that and it's not getting you to fall asleep, it is most likely because your hormones are so taxed that they're not even able to take those signals anymore. So essential oils absolutely have their place, 100%, but you need to get your hormones to a certain point before they even can start listening. And we use them in a triage sense. So as we're working on the steps to be healing these hormones and figure out the root cause, before we're there yet, if we need something as a Band-Aid solution to be helping you at that point in time, we pull out some essential oils. But it's not something that, it's something to use to fix a problem right now. It's not really something that fixes the root cause of the problem. So I hope that that helps you guys with a lot of sleeping where it comes to, and all of the prescriptions as to how they work. In your stress system, we have to account for the 50 hormones that your stress management system manages, your nervous system, the stress and the resting nervous system, and your gut. All three have to be working well in order to in order for you to sleep and have that energy and have the low anxiety and not be depressed. All of these things need to be happening. And so you have to fix that root cause. Those prescriptions and everything that you're taking aren't dealing with that root cause. So if you would like to find out how to do that, let me know, because that's what we do in the program. You can absolutely opt to go to different specialists to be working on your gut, your hormones, and your nervous system. I will tell you though, from my experience and those before they came into the program who were trying that, is that when you're working with them separately and they don't understand how to do them together in a little bit so you can start getting them going. So for example, that boost that I said of the hormones, you need a little bit of it to start, but you can't continue to work on the hormones until you've done a little bit of work on the gut and the nervous system. So you start working on the nervous system a little bit, and you get it to calm down a little, and that allows it to take some stress off of your gut, where your gut is actually working a little bit more because you're not in the stress state, shutting it off. And that gut can then start working a little bit more, which takes pressure then off of the nerves. So it's like a dance. You go a little bit. So you take a little more off the nerves, and then you take a little more off the gut, and you do them all together. So if you would like to learn how we do that, absolutely, private message us. You can email us at support@911lifestyle.com. Everything that you tell us is absolutely private. We are not associated with any service, so we will help you there. You can absolutely comment on here as well. We will help you, but I know that a lot of you like to be a little more private, so reach out. We are absolutely here to help, and we can get you off of those meds. As I said at the start, we've gotten everybody off of their meds except for one so far, and that was somebody who he's only 4.5 months into the program of 12 months, but he was in a very, very, very severe stage of PTSD where his treatments weren't working at all on a slew of prescriptions, just a slew of them. And we got his stress system to the point where he's now making headway in his PTSD treatments. And as that's happening, they are starting to adjust some of his meds. Never adjust your meds without consulting with your doctor first. Definitely do it with your doctor, but we can help your body get to the point where your doctor can help you make those decisions. All right. Any questions? Absolutely. Let me know, and I'm here to help. Tomorrow, we are digging into how to get your melatonin to kick in. So there are things that you could be doing that could be stopping your melatonin from kicking in for 2 hours. So knowing these tips and these tricks will absolutely help you. So look out for that one tomorrow. I'm doing it early in the morning because I'm actually out all day. And Friday is going to be one of my top sleeping tips that has made such a difference in everybody in the program. So stick out for those two. And if you haven't seen the others, we worked on tired and wired and sleep apnea and snoring the other day. So ask questions. I am absolutely here to help.